Yo, what's up? This is Splendid Radio on Pharcyde TV with my co-host, Jeremy Scipio.
What's going on, people?
And a very special guest, man. One of the coolest cats. And it's so funny. I was just having this conversation. Well, Adrian Scott, you know what I'm saying? We'll get into what he does, mover and shaker.
Thank
you. Oh, no, it's just all good. Because, even before I brought you on, Jeremy, I was saying that Adrian's like one of the coolest cats that I know in the hip hop industry that I've like worked with. You know what I'm saying? Like he's never come on nothing that's been crazy. The worst thing he's ever did was try to get me to go after some money. You know what I'm saying? That's the worst.
Not bad.
That's the absolute worst thing he's ever came at me with, man. Anytime we work with him, it's always been first class. You know what I'm saying? He pulled us into a Clippers situation that was beautiful. The dopest memory I have to I could even say that, man, because we did Rock the Bells in 2008. And we had a show where it was Nas, Tribe Called Quest. It was Nas, Tribe Called Quest, EPMD, Pharcyde, and I can't think of who else. I think most Def probably popped in and out. Now, that was cool. But the show that you promoted in the Bay Area that we did with Wu-Tang and Rakim and
that's right. That was the Wu-Tang show, yeah.
Man, I tell people, man, I took a picture of Macy. Oh, De La Soul too. I took a picture of Maceo because we hella cool with Maceo or whatever. And I got a picture of Paz and Brown. But that show was so ridiculous, dude. I couldn't even take pictures. Like, man, I feel like taking a picture of Rakim would be sacrilegious, man. Like, like, damn. So, we gonna get into all that, man. But nah, man, you're a real cool dude, man. And I just appreciate you always shooting straight with me as far as on the business side of things, man. Cool. And it's crazy because it's like you're one of those cats that if someone didn't know you, they really wouldn't know. You know what I'm saying? And honestly, I'll say probably my first time meeting you was I want to say Humble Beginnings album was out. Maybe it was like 2004, and I want to say Echo Haddix was our publicist, and we ended up at KDAY. We ended up at KDAY, and you popped in for a second, and then you popped out, and it was a trip because it was like. Usually program directors are just hell of a tight and just sticky and stuffy and just square and non-relatable and or they're goofball, cornball or whatever. But you came in, you were very, very very humble. You were like, yo man, here's my card, here's my number. If you need anything, just woo woo. And it didn't even come with the overtone or some some bullshit behind it. It was just like a genuine type thing. And I've just always carried that with me. So
I appreciate that.
Yeah, with that being said, how were you first introduced to hip hop?
Well, I've said this story many times. My older brother, Kid J, I was always admired of my oldest brother. And he used to work for Power 106 when I was in middle school. And saw him do that, and I was like, man, I want to be just like my older brother. But in my mind, I want to be better than my older brother because I want to impress my older brother. Mm-hmm. So that was always my driving force to be great, but because ultimately I want to be like my older brother. So I got on pretty early as far as him working at Power 106, and at such a young age, I was going to these flavor unit parties and being on the flavor unit bus, and at those times, there was only one source of consumption of music, right? So there was fans, these remotes were jam packed. So I was so in love with that, and then the fact that I want to be like Kid Capri because he was my favorite DJ. So so that's how it worked out for me personally. So that's how I got introduced to the music like that. I mean, obviously, my father on the back end, but my brother ultimately put me in the spotlight.
Dope.
Did you ever think hip hop would take it this far, or the hip hop's influence on the world?
Yeah, because even at an early age, we were buying clothes and we were emulating guys that we saw on television. And you know, obviously we know as we got older how big of an influence it was when you go to other cities and other states or even other countries. But you know, in my bubble in California, because I'm from Long Beach, you know, when Snoop hit, you know, I thought this was it for us. Like I thought this was the mecca of, you know, what we're supposed to do. And I thought I was Death Row at one point, right? In high school. So I knew it was something. I know now how big it is being on the road and just kind of seeing the impact. And, you know, even in social media now, but even at an early age, you could tell that we was definitely, it was not going nowhere.
Mm-hmm. What's your favorite hip hop movie?
Crush Groove. And I say that because as you know, I created Crush Groove, the concert series, and it was kind of my first memory of like hip hop, even though it was nobody from the West Coast, right? And then when breaking, so listen, so people bust me up all the time because I always say that Crush Groove was the first hip hop movie, but technically it wasn't. Breaking was, but I don't consider Breaking a hip hop movie. I just consider it a dancing movie to me. So, and I've said this in interviews before, like when I was creating these names for these concerts I was doing, I was like, man, what was the first hip hop movie? And that's what Crush Groove came to play. And I remember seeing Crush Groove as a kid, but don't really remember seeing it. And then when you watch it as an adult, you kind of understand how it really made sense. And so, but Crush Groove was probably my first memory, but then obviously I'm from the West. So once you start seeing Boys in the Hood, Menace to Society, but those are more gangbanging movies, but all my rappers were in it. So
okay, but real quick though, Wild Style predates. I mean, I just throwing it out there. Wild Style predates.
I knew somebody so right.
I'm just asking. What's up? What's your thoughts? That's it. I ain't trying to.
Well,
Wild Style didn't make it to the movie theaters. Then I'm assuming it was in Betamax. And therefore, you know, Crush Groove actually had an actual theatrical release.
Okay.
And we date, and now we dating ourselves. Right?
Hey, I'll say this. I didn't see Wild Style until like man, I want to say like 93, 94. Like I saw Wild Style like way after the fact. And it's so crazy because I had actually met Whipper Whip and I had promoted a party with him in Hollywood. And you know, he was just all like, oh, I'm gonna call my Zulu brother. And I knew that he was cool with Africa Islam. I knew that he was cool with Ice-T or whatever, but I didn't understand the significance of who he was. But he had an air. I'll say it. He kind of had like an arrogant air about him, like he was some royalty, but I couldn't make the connection. But when I saw Wild Style, I was like, damn, that's Chris Whipper. I'm like, okay, I'm like, okay, nah, he got that. You know what I'm saying? He got that. I saw the Whipper Whip that had a couple extra pounds. He wasn't like overweight, but he wasn't the skinny, you know, dude from Wild Style, like busting on the mic or whatever. I saw like the older version a little bit of Whipper Whip, so it didn't hit. But when I saw the movie, I was like, damn. I was like, you know, that's great. But the thing about it is, that's why I always say, never judge somebody that you interact with because you just have no idea. You know what I'm saying? And everybody don't just wear it like that. You know what I'm saying? Some people like you know what I'm saying? Like, you're not the cat to just like if we were to go out for drinks or if we had dinner or something, you're not the cat to say, well, I do this, I do that, da 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 da. Like, you're the cat that wouldn't say anything and somebody would be somewhere and see you moving around with a walkie-talkie and directed traffic, you know, whatever, and be like, oh,
You know, it's crazy. You know, that's why some people call me Adrian Scott and some people call me AD, right? Because I have so many different layers to who I am. Because I don't like. I'm not in it for the fame, but I'm in it for the recognition. So I know that's kind of a double-edged sword. But I think I just want to be recognized for my hard work, not for my, not for glamorous things. So you're right. I don't really tell people what I do. And there's been times when people are like, oh yeah, they could be literally talking to me like, oh yeah, AD said I'm good. And I was like, oh really? Yeah, because because sometimes, I don't tell everybody I have so many different plays in my mind. That's why, if you know Adrian Scott or AD, if you know both, you win it. But a lot of people can't put the two and two together. Like my company's called Adrian Scott Presents, but most people call me AD. So, some people can't even put two together. But I did that.
I know I'm gonna like this. I know I'm gonna like this interview because I feel like you got some hot takes in you. And I can feel them coming. You already said one. Okay. But it reminded me of Jermaine Dupri just came out and said he created 106 in Park, and everybody got upset. Bow Wow and all. And then the Brad started his fight, and I was like, okay, you got that same energy. You're gonna be like, I created hip hop.
Well, I guess because I can say that I brought KDAY back. Hold on, I'm gonna tell you what I did claim without claiming.
Let's go. Hold on.
I'm gonna tell you what I do.
Let's go.
And how I know what I know is that I did create the first, and I'll say this, the first old school radio station on the terrestrial dial. That is a fact. When KDAY came back, when it first launched, it was called HipHop Today and back in the day, but it was like 90-10, old school versus new school. And then it went away, and then it became an urban station. So when I came on, I said, guys, there's a market here. And at the time, I wasn't even 30 yet when I launched it. I said, what happened to the music that I like, right? What happened to it really was the Death Row catalog for me. If we go back to my childhood. And I said, listen, there's something here for somebody 30 plus that doesn't want to listen to Power 106 or the Beat, or at the time, Hot was on the air. So had I known what I know, I would have trademarked the motherfucker. It would have been called AD Radio. Had I known what I know, and like La Raza and Super Estrella, like the Spanish markets. But to me, I was just happy to have a job. And so I can say that. So JD, I don't know if he created 106 in Park, but I can tell you for a fact, I was the first terrestrial old school hip hop station created by yours truly. That's a fact.
And so we have go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
So we have a chat. People chime in on the chat and add to the conversation. So I can bring them in on some of the conversation, whatever. One of the first questions that was asked, does traditional radio still have the same stronghold on music?
No, it does not. And because there's too many avenues. And I understand, and I love the new school. And I embrace the old school. So I understand why some of the older DJs have a little, they can't really give it up because the road was so hard to be. See, remember when we started, the radio DJ was top notch. Like that was the Super Bowl for us. Okay. Because there was only one highway outside of television. Right. So this was it. Now there's so many lanes. Like this is not, we had to work extra harder because we were competing because there was only one freeway. Now there's a million freeways, and these guys are making more money, right? Less flexibility, less knowledge of the game, and less politics. So the answer is no, and it's unfortunate, but it is what it is, and that's why you have to evolve. That's why I got into the concert business, is because I just evolved from where I was at to begin with, and I knew this was coming. And I tell radio now, and I'm still in radio. So the cars are not even digital yet, right? There's still the average car in the streets, I think there's like a 2017, the average car. Not like a 2014, I did last. So 2014, I think Instagram was just barely out in 2014. When you really start to do the real math. So by the time cars become super digital, right? In California, 2035, they won't even sell a car that sells gas in it no more. So when cars become truly digital and not with your Apple CarPlay, because eventually these stereos will already be built in they're already going to be inside. So terrestrial radio will have a place if there's an alien attack. in 30 years, because then that's the only way you can get a hold of somebody.
That's funny. Terrestrial. That's a deep cut right there. There's another chat question. I'm nervous to ask this question, but it's straight from the chat. Let me get it out. You okay? Yeah. They said I heard it costs $250K for a single to make noise on the radio. Is that true? You got
I don't know. No. I think. No. I'll answer the question. Is that because I don't know what radio budgets are, right? I don't know what independents versus major labels did. Now, I would say that the company spent a lot of money on some of the newer acts because they had to brand them in a certain sense, and taking them out on the road, put them in a van. Greg, you know about all that, so that cost money. So it had to come from somewhere. Now, as far as greasing pockets, I can't say that everybody has on the take, but I'm not saying they not either. But it wasn't like what it used to be. And then old girl got everybody in trouble in New York. But New York was, I forgot who was on that witch hunt. Oh boy, McConnell, I think it was, when he was trying to get a seat. So he was making sure that he was trying to expose everybody in that sense. So I don't know how much it costs. I just know it costs a lot of money because to get, well, let's just do hip hop. It's probably 2 stations in every market, right? On the average. Mm-hmm. So that's 100 stations, just, So, and to have those many spins being number 1 for the week, it ain't cheap.
That was a good.
So that was a ballpark. The ballpark is what you're saying.
I mean, I don't know what it costs to take somebody around the world by ad time.
Oh, I like this. Yeah. All right, last question. This is mine though. What's your favorite style of hip hop clothing?
Oh wow.
Over the years.
Oh, because I'm into the fads, right? When I first started out, I loved the Mitchell Ness era. That was one of my favorite eras, the throwback jersey era. But I'm grown now, and I just like my clothes to be fitted. So I still was a fan of Rockaware. I thought their clothes was sleek. I thought Diddy's was dope. Wasn't a fan of Slim Shady's. I thought that was weird. Wasn't a fan of Snoop's.
Oh,
that's a fan of mine.
Shady Limited. That was terrible. Yeah, I bought some Shady stuff. It was bad.
Yeah, but I used to like the Mark Echo cut and soul line. That was derived out of hip hop. But now I just like clothes that just fit. So thank you, Kanye. I think I'm in the Kanye era now when it comes to clothing, because it's outside of the weird stuff. Majority of his stuff was actually clean. Minus
Jim Jones started the tight fitting jeans. Kanye admitted that he got that from Jim Jones.
Now I'm trying to visualize a video. Yeah, I can get that.
Yeah, Jim Jones is the first person to come out and they're like, what is you doing?
It's like, listen, I ain't working out for no reason. I gotta show it off. I mean, and that's kind of why we wear fitted clothes to show off a figure, right? At least men, But yeah, baggy clothes, you don't know what somebody look like under them clothes.
That's a fact.
But I don't miss that era. I don't need to be wearing 40X jeans and a XX fucking t-shirt. I do not miss that era.
The women are wearing bigger baggy clothes now, and the men are wearing fitted clothes. It's funny.
That's true.
So, what would you say your favorite genre of music is?
Like hip hop, R&B. I mean, obviously hip hop.
It doesn't even have to be work related. Like, what's your favorite genre? Like off the clock. We'll say off the clock, something that you're not paid to have to deal with. But
R&B. I think I'm in my R&B bag now, especially the older R&B. It's funny. Like I grew up, my pops, Temptation, Four Tops, but I always find myself when I'm not listening to what I'm listening to what I do. I'm listening to the Temptations of Four Tops, and I remember as a kid I used to hate the shit. Now I love it. So that's in Sade, early Whitney, right? Those you can catch me on any given day. And I love the new ones. Like I love her. Tim's is gonna be a star, right? Yeah. It's just that style of music. I genuinely love. I do.
That's dope. On the trivial side of the game, I heard a clip. I guess Bobby Brown has a book, and I heard Clip, and he dropped something that, man, I never heard that before. And he was like, I guess Whitney and Tupac had a relationship. And when Tupac died, Bobby was breaking it down how like he had to watch his wife mourn the death of a lover. And he said that it was difficult for him because for her to mourn him, that was the reality to him, that his wife was, you know, in love with somebody, you know, was in love with somebody else. And I was like, damn, that was, but in one way I was kind of like, damn, how'd they keep that a secret? But you might have had MySpace back then, but it wasn't no social, you know what I'm saying? It wasn't no social media, wasn't no lights, camera, action, you know, that kind of thing going on.
I mean,
they always smashing back then. They always smashing.
I mean, listen, I didn't know Bobby and Janet until I saw the documentary.
Yeah, right.
You'd be amazed. You'd be amazed what you find out. And you're right, there was no social media, so you would never know these things. So, and I think that's the gift of the curse, how we started and how we're kind of evolving. You know, I feel bad for kids, like my own kids. I feel bad for them because they had to, keeping up with the Joneses for us was trying to have new shoes, right? That was keeping up the Joneses for us. Like, make sure your shoes are fly. Now they gotta bring up content every day, constantly trying to bring up stuff, and I feel bad. That's why a lot of kids, you know, they're not socially, you know, accepted in the real world because all they know is what, you know, what it is. So yeah. Bummer.
What city did you grow up in?
I'm from Long Beach, California. So born and raised. So that's my hometown. So we are West Coast music to the fullest. So 88 beats per minute. That's what we want.
That's for real.
88 to 94. That's all I want to be in. I want that's a two-step anthem. I don't want to go past that.
That's something else that we didn't talk about that I want to say that I heard. You DJ too, though, huh?
I started off as a DJ. I wanted to be Kid Capri and my brother. So I learned how to DJ first. One of the greatest investments I ever made. And I went to Long Beach City College at the time. And I was already DJing. I just didn't have no money. And I literally got my first credit card, right? They used to have the Capital One, not Capital One. I don't think Capital One was back in those days, but they had like Visa or whatever at the school, like sign up for a Visa gift card or a credit card. I got my first credit card, was $900. And I literally went to Sam Ash and maxed it out and bought 2 turntables. Didn't even have a mixer yet. I still have those same turntables, the greatest $900 investment in my life, because look where I am now. And I still have those same turntables in my house.
So what was the soundtrack to your junior high school experience? What was the music that was cracking?
I mean, for me, it was, we had a Skate Depot, right? So it was Back to Life, that whole Tennessee Arrested Development phase, where it was kind of the mix of the R&B, but plus, for me, it was also NWA and Ice Cube. Still to this, even though I'm from Long Beach, Ice Cube's greatest, or I still think Ice Cube is probably the best rapper of all time, and I say that respectfully. And Death Certificate is probably the greatest album of all time.
You know something interesting? The lineup for the type, because man, I totally forgot. You pulled this in on that. It was the last time I was at the Universal. It was a Crush Groove. It was a Crush Groove concert, and it was a trip because since that Crush Groove concert, and you doing that, there's certain artists that not too many people in LA can reach out to them as a promoter and really pull them in. And like, I've seen you do the E40s, I've seen you do the Too Shorts, I've seen you do the Cubes, I've seen you do all that. And the difference between what you do and what some of these other cats out there do, you're not just a nostalgic old school show. Like, that's not it. You take artists that have done their thing in the past, but it's not some cliche kind of how they have these festival type concert things going on now that's old school. Because one of the things that Brown was very adamant about, he was very selective in the type of shows he wanted to be associated with that had that whole little old school connotation. Because like you could get sucked into the vortex of that, and then people really ain't, the contemporary people aren't going to trip off of you because you're just going to be this old school, ham bone, version of something that contemporary people aren't going to connect to. But the shows you throw, it's older content, but the contemporary people can connect to it. And I thought that was really dope, the way that you kind of pulled that off.
Well, you got to remember, there wasn't a lot of old school hip hop shows until I started doing them as a collective group. You had these pockets, and and listen, not to count nobody's bag, but my first E40 check is way different than the one I cut now. The first time I paid Ice Cube is it's a whole different ball game now. But you're right, and sometimes some artists have turned me down because they don't want to be considered old school. And I had this conversation with Busta Rhymes, and I'll say this respectfully, and he's like, well, listen, I'm not old school. And I said, well, you are.
Busta Rhymes said he's not old school?
He said, I don't want to be a part of an old school. I'm a generational artist. In his mind, well, I don't know what his mind, I can't speak for him, but he told me I know. And I said, well, respectfully, I don't think people remember your new stuff. They remember your old stuff, what made you Busta Rhymes. And so he has never been on one of my shows because he refuses to be put in this category. So I said, all right. Nas just told me the same thing as well.
What? Well, look. So I will admit, before I say what I'm about to say, Nas is my favorite rapper, but throw all that away. This is my unbiased opinion. This Nas resurgence is unprecedented. Like literally let's go 2020. Let's just pretend Nas was a brand new rapper from 2020. Okay. Literally first album out the gate. What's it called? King's Disease, right? Yeah. Okay. So that won a Grammy, right? Then he released, let's just say 3 follow-ups, right? And it's only been 2 years. It's selling, everything's going well. He even has a new style haircut, and he looks like the new rappers. He don't look like those guys. You know what I'm saying? He don't look old school, and he has a new school producer. So, I mean? It's kind of he's kind of dipping into both worlds.
Let me ask you this though. Is he getting new listeners or those old listeners who like him because he was Nas listening to new stuff?
Yeah, I felt like that because I'm hot as hell. I feel like that personally. Like I was like, oh yeah, he's just only old heads or whatever. But man, he got these new young girls, these TikTokers. They want alternative music, and technically his stuff is considered alternative, and he's selling what the alternatives are selling. Like he's not sold more than what's her name? Who's hot? Sweetie. You know what I mean? Like it's weird. These young girls, it's just like, yo, my favorite rapper is Nas. I'm like, what? So I don't know. It's weird. I think he has alternative fans. If you,
but maybe he's an exception, right? I think there's the Jay-Z's, the Nas of the world, Kanye's, because Kanye is technically old school, right? In a sense, if you define it, or is he not? I don't know.
He's not because he is technically one of the most relevant rappers on the planet. Like he's like, I'd say he's not, but somebody like Snoop is with that same respect though. You know what I mean? It's a shame Busta doesn't embrace that because that's a lane technically of the current rappers who can drop. He's the oldest. You know what I mean? Because you got older rappers, but they can't drop nothing new. But if Busta Rhymes drop a Look at Me Now right now, it'll kill.
But from a managerial point of view, it's kind of like I get why cats don't want to be locked into that, because if you like, okay, so if you were to do an AD show, I think like because I did shows with Adrian AD. Yeah. And it worked out where I wasn't like the group wasn't put in a jar. We could still go and bust festival, and like we could still move around, and it wasn't like just whatever. But I've seen these other cats go out, and there's a promoter that I deal with that at the very beginning of my managerial career, and even with the Pharcyde, there's this cat who's like notorious for putting together like old school, but super old school, and lumping a whole bunch of cats together. Now, the dangerous part about that, economically, financially, is that once you get into that little vortex, and let's just say, see, the thing for me doing shows, I was lucky. I had cats like Adrian, AD that I could reach out to. He was a whole genre that didn't mix in with, let's say, for instance, my golden voice cats, and then so I had the ADs, and then I had the golden voice cats. Then I had club promoters that literally did clubs, but they would just come across this cash from wherever the cash would come from. So it was like I had, like, let's say if it was a dog, I had 6 different tits I could suck off of. You know what I'm saying? So it was just whatever. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? I had a choice. But when you fool around and you start doing these shows, these super old school, not well promoted, super cliche shows, they might pay you cool money the first time, but in order to make those shows work, they got to put so many people on it. And so only the first 2 performers will probably get paid or compensated like really well, and then everybody else, they try to make it like you're lucky to be on it. Like that's how fools try to sell it to me. They're like, oh man, you're gonna be on a show with such and such, man, just take this money and blah blah blah. And it's like, man, it don't excite me to be on a show with such and such. You know what I'm saying? That bank wire excite me. You know what I'm saying? That deposit, that check. But that's how so many people go wrong, because they think like, oh man, you know what? I'll take this little $5,000 show or this little $3,000 show. It's only going to be like 2 or 3 songs, and I'm going to get out there and do it. But what happens is promoters talk. Now, I was lucky. I had like I said, several different tits that I dealt with. So like the people that I dealt with, it was so many different genres that nobody really communicated with each other. Like I not to pat myself on the back, but it was just like everything was apart. You know what I'm saying? Like we could go to, let's say, San Francisco, for instance. The Pharcyde could go to San Francisco. We could do a show for the hip hop community. We could do a show for like the jazz, older hip hop community. We could do a show for the Filipino community. You know what I'm saying? It was like so many different ways that we could do our thing. But once you accept a little bit of money and you're not dealing with a whole bunch of people, it's like, like say, for instance, I go and do a show with somebody, and they're thinking that, okay, one of Greg's groups might work out. And so this person just happens to call you, Adrian, and be like, yo, Adrian, I'm thinking about booking such and such. You know what I'm saying? What do you think I should pay him? And then Adrian,
so I would never, just for the record, I don't never discuss price. And I never did. They would say, what do you pay for somebody? I was like, I don't know, I've been forgetting. Because my price may be different than their price. And then I don't want it to either get thrown back in my face or find out that I paid more. Not that I care, because if I agree to it, I agree to it regardless of the fact. So I have to take the L or the W regardless of it. So I never really tripped about price. Now, what I do trip about with the price is like, when it's like, I wish people, I don't have to call nobody names because this could be in trouble, but sometimes people but some people got to read the room. Okay. And when I say, yo, like we going here is in the middle of somewhere. Population is this. You can't charge me LA when it's this. Now, I'm not mad at you, and I'll say, all right, respectfully, you pass. It's just money. All you can do is say no, so I don't get upset. But then I explain to certain groups, to certain artists, it's like, well, listen, sometimes some markets can't afford that. Yet, you probably make more money in the long run because you're going to give them something they never seen before, because they never had the opportunity to see something right versus somebody in LA, or so. And maybe I'm just a little bit more logic, and the reality is because I'm still a promoter, so I'm a business trying to do the business play. But I wish some artists, majority of artists, will read the room. I think some do. I think some understand that not everything's the super bag, and you can come back to the same market multiple times, and ultimately that makes more money than the one hitter quitter. So,
and to your point, we've hit a couple licks together, but it was like the evolution of the lick was that Wu-Tang show. You know what I'm saying? So it was something that panned out where you had that, where you probably couldn't do something like super duper in different situations, but because we were cool and you had that lick and you were thinking about it, it was like, oh, okay, so you tossed it. And then like, a lot of people are like, you know what, man, Greg is easy. Fuck it. I'll just, this is not, for all the headaches that I may have, I know that this isn't going to be a headache, and that's dope. But the one thing that I'll say that probably gives you an edge, one, I haven't had the experience with you being a slime ball, which like a lot of cats are slime ball. They'll say whatever, do whatever. But I think your cheat code is your experience in the radio industry. You know what I'm saying? Where you understand relationships a lot better than the slime ball promoters, because a lot of slime ball promoters, they'll jock themselves so much that they ain't tripping off of nobody, and they just think like, you know what I'm saying? They think they the shit. You know what I'm saying? So they're like, man, I'm not even tripping. But you understand it's relationships, man.
Absolutely. And I appreciate that people pick up my phone call. And at the end of the day, and we had this conversation before we even started this. I was like, one thing I can only control is my word. And if I give you my word, then that's the only thing I could truly stand for. I used to, when I first started getting the business, I didn't understand the deposit game. Okay. And that was tough because as a DJ, I didn't get a deposit. I just DJ'd and it showed up and I got paid, right? So so these artists, I'm like, well, show up, I'm gonna pay you, right? And I had to learn deposits, and then I had to learn, the jockeying of the lineup, right? I mean, I've had some very intense conversations with artists who are mad because they're going on first. And in my mind, I didn't look at it that way. And I'll give you a perfect example. One of my second year Crush group at the Gibson, I had Mac 10 on the show. Now, I knew Mac 10 was bigger than some of the other guys on the show. And I said, you know what would be dope in my mind? And I was like, man, you know what would be dope? We're gonna start this show off with a bang. Mac 10 gonna knock it out the park. In my mind, because I'm a programmer. So when I'm building out this lineup, I was like, this is gonna kick-start the show. This nigga said, I ain't going on first. And I didn't understand why. And I was like, well, why? Well, nobody's in the crowd. I was like, why do you care? Like, whether it was 1,000 or a million people, I'm still paying you the same price. But I try to explain to him, like, yo, bro, you're gonna set the bar so high that the show has to get better because of you. At least that's what I thought. But we ultimately figured it out. I had to put somebody else first, but he did come on second that year.
Yeah, that's
so I'll be honest.
No, go ahead, Jeremy.
Okay. I'll be honest. I don't know what y'all been talking about for the longest because both of y'all have made more money than I can see. So honestly, I'm talking. I'm like, oh yeah, that sounds good. That's a great idea. Yeah. But what I will say is, I think trying to nobody has that full global scope. You know what I mean? As like, we all have blind spots, and I would say like the youth, man, because somebody put me onto that a few years ago, man. You'd be surprised where the youth, where they stand and what they pay attention to. You know what I mean? Like when I rock Pharcyde gear, man, I'm telling you, like it'd be like 22-year-olds. I had a 22-year-old like trip out You know what I'm saying? Oh, you know what I mean? Like this music's older than him. You don't even, you know what I'm saying? He should know, but the fact that he's into it, he's the one that's buying it. He gonna buy a ticket first. He gonna show up first, be in front of the line screaming. You know what I'm saying? That's a market. That's an alternative money. When people are doing stuff, they don't think about these people, but these people are like, I'm like, he's like, oh man, I got posters, I got the records and stuff. I'm like, what you doing with the records? You don't got a record player, you know what I mean? But I just be thinking like, I'll be thinking like, what market am I missing out on? Who am I not paying attention to?
Well, you know why that's happening? I'll tell you why it's happening, because people who are in position to put these songs in play are people who grew up on the music. That's why if you listen to a lot of commercials and a lot of movie scores, they're our age, right? So so they're putting these music, you go back into the early part of 80s and 90s, they wasn't playing, this music, but now like every commercial, this is how we do it, or so that's because people in position are our age, and that's what the music that they grew up to. So I get why, like my youngest son is 14, and he's probably a little bit biased because he grew up with me, but his playlist had songs. I was like, I didn't even play this record. So, but he's like, I got it, whether I got it from video games or I got it on YouTube or whatever the case may be, it's just because people in position to play music is probably playing music that they grew up on. So I get it.
Mm-hmm. We got another chat question. Do you see West or East Coast regaining a place back in music since the takeover of the South?
Well, once again, I just think there's so many lanes now. The answer is no. I think we're all in one big melting pot. I think, of course, people are going to have their local fans, as they should. I always tell people, you can't be a star in the world if you're not a star in your own hood. Right. So I think you have to originate from where you come from. But ultimately, like I said, the South is hot now. I mean, the South has been hot, but once again, the South is hot because the South recognizes the South and they stand up for their own. So, I just think these cities and these coasts have to just take care of their backyard first. And then we'll see what happens.
What did you think your journey would be after you graduated high school?
Well, me personally?
Yeah.
Man, I was such a funny guy. I thought I was gonna be like a comedian or something. I swear that I thought I won class clown 2 years in a row. And then I always thought I was gonna, and I think this is perfect for what I do now, is that I'm a very good teacher. And I know how to explain things, especially to our youth and to people of color, in a way that it doesn't come across as I'm chastising them or putting them down. So, had this not planned out, and I was always DJing at a young age, but I ultimately probably would have been a teacher. So in some shape or form, in high school, middle school, especially probably middle school, because that's where, the knuckleheadisms kick in. But to be somebody who's been a knucklehead, who's kind of not been a knucklehead and succeeded, I think I would have been a very good teacher, and I could have gave him some intel on what's life in the real world than what you see on TV or even on social media at this point. Maybe it's not too late. Maybe I can still get a teaching degree somewhere.
Hey man,
you trying to get on stage? I got you. You know what I'm saying? You said that.
See, those days is over. I go there. I'm somebody gonna heckle me, and I'm gonna be upset.
I want to see it. Come on, man. I got you.
I'm gonna storm off.
What club you want to perform at?
Give me the improv. Let me start. Let me get the improv. I'm not a good comedian, but I'm a good host. I can do pockets and carry the show. Outside of that, I can't hold 5 minutes to save my life.
I get back in town January 6th. Right. Anytime after January 6th, we got you.
We're gonna set it up there.
Yeah, no, that's it. For anybody listening, man, Jeremy pulled it off the last minute in the airport, man. So you know what I'm saying? I would say for him holding the podcast down at the airport, he's doing a great job. You know what I'm saying? He found him some cool little scenery. You just gotta, a little bit of
See, he was talking about he had no money. That looked like he in the Centurion Lounge somewhere. So he got an Amex. He got an Amex car somewhere. Quit playing with us, man.
I ain't got nothing, man. Hey,
Hey,
don't
listen.
my
That look
enemies
like
are listening, man.
Nah, that look like a priority lounge. That don't look like no damn. Listen, I'm in the airport 3 days out of the week. I know what the lounge look like.
This is just decoration. This is a
Yeah,
homeless person. So don't worry about it.
Yeah, in the priority lounge. You ain't sitting at Auntie the pretzel shop, Auntie Eddie's, whatever the shit is called.
I can see one. That's funny. I can actually see down
I don't
there.
I don't see no kookaroos over there. That look like priority lounge. That is
fine. I almost got enough flight miles for that. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
I almost got enough flight miles. What was it? How would you describe a radio program director?
Well, I think we're all different. And I think we all look at how we're supposed to program the way we look at it. Now, I'm one of those programmers who's done every position in the radio station, so I'm a little bit more hands off. And I also tell people, it's like, you know, if I really knew what somebody wanted to hear, I would be a program director because I would be selling them something that they really wanted to hear. So what I always try to tell my staff is we just got to be consistent of who we are. And so when they come to us, they know exactly what they're getting. You know, if we serve chicken, I'm not going to serve steak the next day. So for me, I just want to be consistent as possible. And that's what I tell my staff. I tell them when they talk, like, you know, obviously we're still in how we justify ratings. It's still a flawed system, but it is what it is. And there's nothing we can do to change it. So, and all I can tell my staff is just be you. But here's a few guidelines. I'm pretty hands off.
What was your first job being a program director?
KDAY was my first.
Okay.
KDAY was my first. Now I have been APDs and I was an art. And by the time I got to KDAY, I was, I programmed on the music director side, not the actual program director, but KDAY was my first one. And it's funny is that the same day they hired me was the same day that Obama got elected as president. And I felt like, and at the time I was the young, listen, you know LA Radio. I was the youngest, I think I was the youngest. I'll say Greg Mack was the first Black PD, but I was definitely the youngest Black PD ever in Los Angeles because I wasn't even 30 yet at the time. So, and here a 30-year-old, less than a 30-year-old programming a classic hip hop station, right? When my contemporaries were, at Hot 97 or Power 106, they were still, we were all the same age, but yet I was programming music that was 20 years behind us. So, because I was a fan of that era, still am to this day. So, but KDAY was my first.
The genius behind that I'm just, it's so funny how things come full circle. You were really responsible for resurrecting the careers on Los Angeles radio, the Corrupts, the Dominoes, and that's so funny you say you're from Long Beach, the Dominoes, the Dog Pound, you were playing all that stuff, and the music was, the music was like years old, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
And it was so funny because even though Power 106 was the larger station, people were coming to KDAY to hear that mix, you know what I'm saying? To get that old school, you could come and you could get the mix, the afternoon traffic mix or whatever it is that you guys had. That was so 92, 93, 94 in the 2000s,
Right. Well, I'll tell you why. I mean, literally, now this becomes a little nerdish on the radio side, is that KDAY signal wasn't the world's largest signal, so you can only hear it in certain areas, okay? So the actual tower is on Mount Wilson, which is basically which is where KJLH is at. So it literally on this side of the 405 freeway, right? On the southern side. So, we got into Carson, Long Beach, and, the East LA. So we had these pockets. So I knew specifically that I had to be different, but I had to be LA centric because I didn't program for the world. I programmed for the city. And I think that's where a lot of people got it misconstrued. And I even think PDs now to this day, they look at charts, and I didn't care about a chart. I grew up with Conscious Daughters, DJ Quicks of the world, Dub C's. Well, guess what? So was my neighbor. Guess what? So was my neighbor across the street. Guess what? When I went to other high schools and played football, and I heard the same music. So I knew that all I had to do was just keep it real West Coast. And at the same time, play big hits. But I knew that this is why KDAY worked. And I think this is the problem a lot of old school stations now, is that LA has its own music. Okay. SoCal got its own music. There's a reason why DJ Quick is so big and also the Sugar Frees of the world, right? Because that's home. And I knew that. That's why the New York station is finally taking off, because they started to play the artists that are from New York. And but I knew that. And that's all I want to hear anyway. So I didn't give a shit.
I know you're telling the truth, because only since I moved to LA could I say out loud, when I met you last night, baby, and I don't have to say nothing else. Yeah. Everybody will finish the whole room. I've never experienced that before.
That's a beat cut. Ain't no fun, right? It's a beat cut. It's like, this shit never, ain't no video, but I got away with that. I was playing the shiznit, and like, but yeah, that was the beauty of KDAY. I always to tell people KDAY is like, when we grew up, I could never afford pay-per-view to watch Mike Tyson fights. So when you watched it, you had every now and then they give you a good glimpse of the fight. That's KDAY to me, because the signal wasn't so good, but you knew when you lost it, you was gonna get a little pocket of it, but you knew you was about to hear Ain't No Fun or Steady Mobbing from Q, or Conscious Daughter, something to ride to. You knew that you wasn't gonna get nowhere else. So I that was my Dub C in the Mass Circle. Fucking, I'm drawing a blank because I'm being put on the spot. But I had all these, even jail felonies of the world, is Sherm Stick. Not even what you gonna do with it. I had these records that I knew were cars that drove around my city, bumping the shit out of it on each block. So I was like, that's what they remember. So, and plus, people my age and older, they still listen to radio because that's how they grew up on. That's why that's why radio is kind of in this weird phase, because our children didn't grow up on the radio. They grew up on the phone. So how they consume their music is different than how we consume this music. That's why there's more old school stations in terrestrial radio than there's new school stations, right? Everything's like 80s, 90s, and today, right? That's everything, because the average person is still, the people who do listen is above 30. Simple math.
So, in your words, what would you describe the formula of a hit record?
See, once again, that's hard for me because everybody takes it differently. I think eventually a song can become a hit if you hear it more than when you ultimately keep hearing it, right? I think that is frequency, number one. Number two, you like what you like, and sometimes you be in this pocket, like I said, I'm like 88 to 90, 92 beat per minute, right? 94 tops. So anytime I can get a BPM that, I'm open to hearing that. Plus, I think we're accustomed to certain artists that you just expect them to do well, right? When I hear a Jay-Z album, I just assume it's going to be a great song because his track record, or even Drake, right? I think Drake, every time Drake touches something, I expect it to be a monster because he is constantly proving himself to be the greatest of all time. And he'd probably go down as the greatest of all time.
Well, I've been waiting for another hot take. Drake, greatest of all time.
He will go down as the greatest rapper of all time.
Only person I think directly agrees with you with no debate. Is
none of debate. Listen,
Dang.
the man he as better as Kendrick is lyrically, and every time Kendrick puts something out, I just truly love it. I just think his level of his level of competition, and the fact that he constantly keeps bringing them, he'll go down as the greatest of all time. Easily.
Wow. Tell me this. So who's been the artist that has surprised you in your career? Who's the artist that has surprised you the most? If you look at a song coming to a radio station as being in a race, and you or you got this horse race or this dog race going on, and who is the one that you didn't see it coming from the rear and it just really took off?
Wiz Khalifa shocked me like no other. I thought he was a one-stop shop. I thought that whole black and yellow was a gimmick. And I told somebody, I was like, oh, this ain't gonna last. He ain't gonna last.
Wow.
My bad, Wiz.
Wow.
By the way, I've only whiffed on a couple. I whiffed on Wiz. And I think that's the only one I whiffed on. Everybody else, I always knew that somebody had it in them. The first day I met them, I was like, okay, they got something. And then I just didn't know what it was. There was always something about somebody. But I only whiffed on Wiz. I thought he was a one-stop shop. I thought that was a true gimmick, and then he has surprised me. And I'm a fan of Wiz now. He constantly keeps coming. I didn't like what he did to the DJ, but that's neither here nor there. But
what did he do again?
When he told the DJ to shut up, you hear, he punked him. He punked him. And
he apologized because it went public, though. That's the reason.
He did. That's right. Because he went public, right? But you feeling yourself, man. But liquor is a hell of a drug, right? So
yeah.
All right. So I'll say you've done radio in LA. You're doing radio in Denver right now. Did you do radio in Las Vegas at any point in time?
I did. I did Vegas, New York, Greensboro, North Carolina. This I'll tell you the greatest thing I ever did in my life was to go to Greensboro, North Carolina. And that's when I knew music was regional. Okay. That was the first time, because growing up in LA, going to Vegas, going to Palm Springs are all microcosmos of LA. Right. So there's really no true influctuation of music until I went to Greensboro, and then ultimately I went to New York. And then I figured out that, oh shit, because I'll never forget it. The second West Side Connection album came out, right? I'm in Greensboro, North Carolina. And I was like, da, 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 da. This to me is like, I thought this was the greatest record ever, right? Nate Dogg's on the hook, Ice Cube, Mac 10, Dub C. This is the greatest fucking record to me. West Coast stand up. I played it on the radio. Okay, I'm excited. One of those pump it or dump it, right? Bullshit segments we used to come up with. And in those days, still, internet's not really there yet. So radio was the true consumption of people's choices. And I remember these people called me from Greensboro, like, if you don't take that dumb shit off. And I was just, my feelings was just beyond hurt. It's like, if you don't put Lil Jon B.A.B. on, or there was another little scrappy record at the time was banging. I was just like, wow, that's how y'all gonna do the West Coast. That's how y'all gonna do us. Like, I was offended. But then I was like, but that's dope though, because they like they own, and that's okay. But had I not been to Greensboro and understand that music is regional, hence the reason why KDAY is so LA, right? Because I didn't need to be anything else but LA, because I didn't care what Vegas wanted or Phoenix wanted. So, yeah, thank you, Greensboro. And that's the first time I've ever seen snow fall from the sky. So that was different.
That's funny. Real quick, I want to go back to the Drake thing.
Okay.
Greatest of all time. One thing I always say about Drake. You said what?
He will go down as the greatest of all time, but yes.
He's like, I have to preface.
But that's right now, he's probably who's better than Drake right now?
As far as what I hate to have these conversations.
Yeah, because it's right. But I'm just saying,
This category,
he's been the MVP in our league for the last 10 years.
Yeah. And back to that Kanye conversation. That's what part of why I feel like Kanye was instigating that beef with Drake, because that keeps him relevant. Because Drake is the most popular rapper. I think that was part of that. Kanye's a marketing genius. Yeah, because otherwise, he would be lumped in with his peers. You know what I mean?
Right.
And his peers are the Commons and the Mos Def, Talib Kweli's, and
right.
He's like, yeah.
I agree. I completely agree.
With Drake, I was gonna say one credit I was give him is that when they're doing the whole Kendrick versus Drake thing, and Kendrick, I like him way better, but I always say that though he just threw a lot of threats out there, Kendrick has no bodies. I like to make that clear.
I agree.
Drake, he's always the first to throw out some threats, and he shows up on the threats. Most times either people don't come hard or they don't come at all. You know what I mean? He do have a big OL on his record, but I mean, he put it out there. I said, Kendrick, he never, as forward as he is, people don't want to admit this, he's never called anybody out. And he's never, he has no bodies, zero. So that's the edge I give the Drake,
I agree. And I wish, but everybody's different, but knowing Kendrick, because KDAY used to come to KDAY before he was Kendrick. And we used to let him in the station all the time. And so I've seen the evolution when he was a kid. I don't want to call him a kid because he was an adult, but KDAY used to, I started saying, man, who's this kid? They used to always come to the building all the time. And a girl named Debbie Deb used to work for me. She's like, oh my God, this guy's going to be great. She called it for me. She's like, this guy's going to be great. I promise you. And I didn't even know Top yet because I knew Top, but I knew Top because of, what's his name? Jesus Christ. But somebody else from TDE, the original TDE rapper. J-Rock. Right. So J-Rock used to always come. So, and I remember, he was, used to always come together, but they used to always come to the station all the time. And I think I heard Section 80. I think it's Section 80. And I was like, all right, but it didn't hit me yet.
Hey, low key, same. And I love that album, but same.
Yeah. But I'm happy for him. I'm happy for the West Coast. I just saw the new video coming out today, which I think cinematically, I think Kendrick's mind is a little bit better than everybody in hip hop. And I love that he makes it more of an art feel. Like that was like a movie to me. I was so mad that it cut off because I thought there was more. Right.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, it was weird.
And I was still that's one of my favorite songs on the album. So it was disappointing, but I get it because he's making you want more. So, and I give that edge to Kendrick as far as artistic ways and how he makes his music more of a movie. And, so, but Drake just comes out with bangers and he's willing to take on any fight. Like you're right. He's willing to take, all right, win, lose, or draw, I'm coming. So I can respect that too.
Yeah, that's the only edge I really, really give Drake. Other than that, Kendrick by a mile for me. But I was just like people just be like, nah, man, because Kendrick did this, he did that. I say he has no bodies. He's never bodied anybody. He put out Control. That was 10 years ago, and he ain't delivered on that yet. So that's just me, that's it. And I'm just saying, everybody backed up though. I would admit everybody backed up, but he ain't taking nobody out.
But I think his little fire. I think his warning shot was big enough.
It was huge. It was definitely huge. But once again,
I think the warning shot was good enough.
The roar.
I'm sorry. His warning shot was, I'm trying to make sure nobody hear one noun or verb or word from you niggas. I'm going to make sure, you know what I mean? I'm going to take your core fan base. This is what he said, yo. And by the way, was Tyler scoring, he getting Grammys and Oscars. Meek Mill saved everybody out of prison. Drake still scored. Everyone he named, Pusha T, he named Pusha T on there. Pusha T that had the best album run he ever had. You know what I'm saying? So I'm just saying, you know what I mean? I just that Kendrick did not deliver.
Well, listen, he's not on TDE no more. Let's see what happens next. How about that?
This is very true, and I like the folks at PG Lane and TDE. I know a lot of them.
So do I.
Really cool.
And Top is one of the nicest guys I can ever meet. And so you know, anything I can do to support those guys, I definitely can. He has yet to give me a TDE artist on any of my shows, but I still got nothing but love for Top.
I actually haven't met Top, but I met everybody else, literally everybody. But yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
No, that's it.
What's the most historic moment you witnessed? I
tell you and it's in a concert place, is that I did a show in the Bay, E40. And Greg would tell you this. I normally don't see my own shows because I'm constantly moving around, dealing with fires, whatever this, whatever that. So I'm always on the go. And I'm in the Oakland Arena. It was whatever, it was some show that I did. I forgot the name, but I think it was How the West one, had to be. And E40 does I Got Five on it, right? But it just so happens Drew Down is there, and they did everybody from the Bay on the remix was there. So, and they told me this is the first time ever they done I Got Five on a remix live, and they all happened to be there. And I just remember hearing the crowd go crazy. What the fuck's going on? Like, it was kind of one of those moments. So I go to the stage, and I remember seeing Drew Down getting down, and I was like, Looney's here, Drew Down's here, 40's here. I'm missing somebody else. I forgot who was on the remix, but they were all there. And that was, to me, even though I'm not a Bay guy, I'm the Bay, they were all there. So that to me was dope. That's what stands out to me. Man, one of my biggest flops, it wasn't a flop, I just couldn't sell it right. In my mind, once again, because I'm always thinking, I was like, I can only do the same show so many times, right? So I said, all right, this is what I'm gonna do this year. I'm gonna do something different. I'm gonna put the crews together, right? And we're gonna do this kind of the cruise battle. Like, I had Exhibit, Alcoholics, King T, right? Then I had Warren G, the Dove Shack, fucking the Twins, and the 5 Footers. And then I forgot for the other group. And in my mind, it was dope to me, but I couldn't really sell it. And that one really bothers me. I know it was memorable because it flopped. So that's my second memorable thing.
Ooh.
Outside of, I think my biggest crown is when I first launched KDAY, we didn't have talent on the air. We didn't have talent for like 2 years. Okay.
It was automated.
Yeah. But Nate Dogg had died.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And I get a call from DJ Dance, who was in the studio running the board. He said, yo, Nate Dogg died. I said, what? I said, oh shit, well, hold on now. I rushed to the station. I'm actually at Hollywood Park playing poker. So I rushed to the station and I said, we're gonna get on the air and we're gonna talk about Nate Dogg. Okay, we're gonna dedicate all this to Nate Dogg, literally. So myself, Dance, I had another girl at the time, Pretty Ricky, and we're all giving these Nate Dogg stories. And I just remember being so iconic because then everybody started calling in. Snoop called in, he was crying. Warren called in, his son called in. So like that to me was so dope because we really had LA on lock at that moment. Mm-hmm. Sad it was a tragedy, but you know, for me to contribute to that, to help kind of, if anybody felt at ease at some point, I gave them that outlet. It reminded me when Tupac died, and it was kind of that same, you know, I was in that same bag when Nate Dogg died. And like I said, I remember I got the analytical results one day when we saw that day, and the spike in the streams was so high. And because once again, our signal wasn't great, so people were downloading the app. But yeah, when Snoop called in, I knew I had something when Dogg called in, and it was unsolicited. I didn't tell people to call in. It was just like they knew the hotline number. So they were texting me like, we need a hotline number. I remember Snoop called in, Exhibit called in, because that's the first time he told me the story about Nate Dogg and midgets. I thought it was the funniest story ever. And it was just, that to me, on the terrestrial side, is probably my greatest moment of all time.
You know, the interesting thing about it is that you're reminding me that our radio disc jockeys and the radio stations were so much to my experience growing up, because there wasn't social media. There wasn't these bigger than life people or things that you could really reach out to. And we went to the radio, just like it's funny, like the movie with Don Cheadle when he played
yeah.
I
know what we're talking about, yeah.
The dude eating the watermelon, spitting the seeds and all that. Like the radio DJ is who the people went to get consoled, to get, to like, man, to really make it through the day. Where now it's kind of like, even with myself, I find myself going to YouTube a couple times a day. You know what I'm saying? I'll go, and the craziest thing about it is I'll listen to commentary from the most unspoken individual with no production value to, it's crazy. It's like the internet has created this leveling of the playing field, where you don't have to have high production, and you don't have to, and then everybody is saying, throwing TV behind their name, and everybody's saying, it's so interesting, because like I'm kind of following a couple of the trivial things going on, kind of like the Young Thug situation and the Young Dolph situation or whatever, and you have people speaking on it, and they're literally speaking over commentary that other people, or content. They're speaking over content that other people have given. But the crazy thing is, even though it's content that other people have given, and you have someone speaking over it has the worst English in the world, and the production quality, you hear dogs and cats screaming and scrapping and moving in the background and all that kind of stuff, but they'll have like 80,000 views. You know what I'm saying? Like they have, and it's so this is the question I have for you, Adrian. How do people connect back with the DJ? Like how, like the on the whole terrestrial radio thing? Like how does that?
The radio DJ has to succumb to the phone and reach out to them during social media. I mean, you're right, that cooler talk, those days are over, because you're right, there's so many levels of consumption of music, or how you get entertained. So the radio, but here's the beauty of radio, and I still say this because it's still, when it comes to music, right? Because sometimes people really don't know what they like until somebody else plays it, right? So it's still kind of our job to put things, and it may not be a new song, it could still be an old song like you never heard, like, oh my God, this makes sense. So we still give you guidelines on what you really like in life. But as far as the, the interaction between jock and listener, they still have to reach out to them like this, right? Remember, you couldn't, listen, as a kid, I used to call the radio station, I never got it, right? Now, they can text me now, and I'll respond. They can hit our chat room now. Or, they can send a DM to the station right now, like, hey, what's up, buddy? So, listen, it just changed. We just have to evolve. It is what it is.
Solution.
Yeah, D Nice, he paved the way, the new standard for the DJ. Like, yeah, that just the way he hit, because that showed. It also showed that DJs are still necessary. You know what I mean? Like, you still need somebody with good taste to generate the music for the masses.
Right, absolutely. I mean, once again, you don't know what you like until somebody plays it.
Wow.
Typically.
That's clean. What's the best advice anyone's ever given you?
Wow. I've had so many. I got a couple. Number one is, luck will always get you in the door, but talent will always keep you. And I say that to everybody, because you're lucky to be where you're at. It's up to you to maintain the spot. Number two, you're only as good as your word. I know that's a true cliche, but it is really true, because Greg will pick my phone call up every time. He has not missed a call, because I've always done what I said I was going to do. And just be yourself, man. Don't ever try to be somebody you're not, because we can see through bullshit. At least I can. So I never try to be anybody but myself. So those three things, and drink water.
I watched this thing on that was Jay Prince. They said the most feared man in hip hop, and they were saying like, how'd you get this title? And he said, well, I don't own that title, but he said what you just said as far as like, he just said, I just keep my word, and I expect anybody around me to do the same.
Facts. Tony Draper will have something to say about that, but that's a Houston debate that's not for me to talk about. But what up, Draper? Let that guy. But yeah.
Dope. So tell me this: if you had to pick radio or promoting shows.
Well, I mean, it's if you asked me this question 12 years ago, it would be full on radio. But my programming style is what I started in the radio to what I'm doing in these shows. So, they kind of go hand in hand. I'd love the instant satisfaction or gratification of the promo of the concerts because you see it in real time. On the radio side, I don't, remember we get our ratings 3 weeks after we already did it, right? So I don't know if I did good or not. But now the instant gratification when people show up and buy a ticket, I would say this is the fun for me because, go back to this lane, right? So this is why I'm in this space. No matter how you consume it, your phone, your internet, whatever the case may be, the radio, but you can only watch them when they're there. So here I am in a position of putting these shows on so you can physically see what you like. So I would say, I'm a big fan of the talent side of things now. I mean, they both got the same headaches, they both got the same issues, they both got the same problems, but the instant gratification of the shows is why I'm in it. So yeah. And this will evolve into something else. I just don't know what it is yet, but I'll take this and I'll curve to the left. Everybody thought that during COVID that we're gonna have shows online. And I said, no, we won't. And I'll tell you why. Because there's a reason why you like live concerts, because it really fucking bumps. Right? Speakers are loud. If your ass got a little ass TV and little ass speaker and you watching the verses, you really can't feel the effect of that song because you only as good as your value. Right? In a show, you can actually feel the energy, feel the crowd. You can hear the moans and the groans and and all the ahs and ahs. You don't hear that shit on TV. That shit just fucking people are so busy worried about the comments, they probably didn't pay attention to the verses half of the goddamn time. They was trying to figure out who said what. I used to read the shit like, oh, who said that? So, yeah. But yeah, so the crowd is where it's at for me. So yeah.
A couple more. Speaking of comments, we got a couple of comments here. I want to give them. They say, what do you think about TikTok's influence?
I think it's fantastic. I think it's phenomenal that these kids and these influencers are taking these small sound bites, and these people are so creative, man. Like, now I don't have the time or the patience, but I think it's phenomenal that these kids are just creating magic on a cardboard box. Like, I mean, this thing is 2 inches by 6 inches, right? Like, and they create magic. Love it. I think it's dope. I think it's fantastic. I keep creating it. They got me sucked into. There's been times I've been sucked into a wormhole watching all these goddamn TikToks. I'm like, man, I need to get off. So, yeah, I think it's beautiful. Keep it up. Keep up the good work, TikTokers.
What music puts you in a good mood?
I said this earlier. At R&B right now, Tim's puts me in a good mood. I don't care how bad of a day I'm having. Man, I put some Tim's on, some of that old Tim's too. That true South African Tim's, I'm all on it. But yeah, that puts me in a very good mood. Just relaxed.
And last one, do you like rap in Spanish?
Yeah, I think that's, of course. Bad Bunny's, shit. Man, listen. Bad Bunny has literally It's funny. I remember when radio station were doing this like hip hoppy mas, right? They were kind of doing this Spanglish vibe. And I said, this won't work because they don't have a true star yet. Daddy Yankee was probably on the cusp at this time, maybe Don Omar. But nobody has seen a star like Bad Bunny. Mm-hmm. So once he became, because he's crossed over. Yeah. Now this music will survive forever. There's a true genre for Latin trap or reggaeton or whatever they want to call it now, because Bad Bunny he is a mega star, and now he's creating other stars. That's why I didn't stick about 10 years ago. And now it's fucked up because Daddy Yankee's retiring, but he was probably that guy, but he was never that guy.
Yeah.
Bad Bunny is that guy. He's Taylor Swift. He's Drake. It's probably bigger than both of them. Globally.
He's bigger than Drake. Drake was the highest streamed artist ever, and then Bad Bunny is currently now.
So
highest streamed out of anybody.
And you got to remember, there's more people who speak Spanish than English. Okay, so Spanish is what 60% of the earth. So do the math. So if he out there speaking to that, they can relate to it. So yeah.
So tell me this: if you were to have a biopic, what would it be called?
So it's just funny because I always said I was going to write a book, and the book was I was going to call myself The Last Great Nomad. I never grew up with a childhood home. My whole life, I mean, I don't blame my parents, but I've always moved a lot. Okay, so I don't have a lot of childhood friends because I was constantly moving. Then I get into radio as an adult. What happens in radio? We get fired a lot. So I'm constantly moving. Look at my life now. I'm in 3 different cities in a week. I am the last great nomad. And so literally, I just the guy that keeps picking his shit up and go. I don't have a real home. I have houses, but I don't have a home. And it's kind of sad when you think about it, when I reflect on it, and 40-some years later, is that I've never had a childhood home. Now I don't even have an adult home. So, but it's the life I chose, and it is what it is.
Who would play you in the biopic?
Well, shit. Light skin, curly hair. Who's that? Who fits that bill? There's a lot of us, but I don't know who can play me, and I ain't that tall. So hold on now. Who I want to play me? I want Ray J to play me because I think Ray J energy, and he's aggressive.
Best answer ever.
Yeah, I want Ray J to play me because I know Ray J because I love me some Ray J. He gonna give it his all. I want Raz B to play me too. Light skin.
Yo, okay, all right.
Oh, let me tell you, listen. His energy. I'm kidding. I don't know, but yeah. Yeah, nah.
I give it to Corey Guns. Let Corey Guns get back in the game.
I love Corey Guns. That's another light skin cat I can deal with. But yeah, West Coast vibe. I get it. Well, he's not really got a West Coast vibe, but I like Corey Guns. So yeah.
So I'm gonna hit you with the last one, man.
Okay, perfect.
So with all we've seen, how do you see social progression moving in the next 2 years?
In what space?
As far as just shows, interaction, people interacting with each other, because with the whole COVID-19 thing, people didn't interact with each other for several years, and then things pick back up, and people are kind of interacting differently. And then as far as the youth are concerned, I had a lot of friends who had like teenage kids, and the disconnect of COVID kind of made them less, it impaired them as far as how they interact with, how the younger generation interacts with each other. So in the next 2 years, how do you see the interaction going?
I think remember, we all need somebody, right? We was not put on this earth to be isolated in life. So I do believe that eventually, I get COVID came in, listen, it affected me like no other, right? I sit on the sidelines trying to figure out how to eat. But I think over time we'll forget what happened in these last few years, and then we'll get back to shaking hands, and I think we'll be a little bit more careful. I think we have a self-awareness. I know that I wear my mask more now than I've ever did, even though it's not mandated. It's kind of just more of a comfort level, especially when I'm on planes. But I still see us still going out. I still think once again, you can only see them in so many cities, right? No matter how you can download it, to see Nas live, you got to show up, right? And that building only got 15,000, right? So if your city got 1 million people plus, only 15,000 can go. So I think we go back to, I would like, what I don't like, and I'm in this, I don't like the festival feel. I love an intimate show. I'll give you a perfect example. I just had a show in Denver, and Too Short was on it, Bash was on it, but it was an intimate show, and Too Short gave me an hour. He'll never give me an hour, because these bigger shows, they come with so much, I have to be on time, union buildings, right? So I'm always like, oh, I'm like this, wrap it up. But we did it I did it different. I did it inside of a hotel, and he sat there and he was talking to the crowd and he was talking back. But that was the first time I ever seen Short kind of be short outside of being short. Like, I know him in a different space, because we hang out when we do see each other. But he was that way on stage, and he was on it for an hour. Fucked up the after party because he was there so long that the after party was short. But I think I would like to see us get back to more intimate shows. I like the artists to be truly get that true experience. I mean, I get it. You want to sell 15,000, but when you're in the rafters, bro, like, that's just no fun. Like, I ain't never sat there, but I see some of these videos and shit. I'm like, how is this fun when you watching the TV? Okay. Bad Bunny this little. You at the rafters and shit. So
I ain't gonna lie. I saw Usher recently, and from the balcony, and that was actually fun. That was the first time though. First time I ever enjoyed myself in the back.
Oh, lucky you, because I couldn't do it. But I would like to see artists do more intimate shows. I think they will appreciate it more, and because I think when it's a smaller crowd, you can they're genuinely here for you. So that's what I would like to see. But I can't pay you 15,000 seat price for 800. So we just have to come to some type of common ground here.
Yeah, but you know what though? That goes back to the conversation we were having earlier. Since you're cool with Short and whatnot, man, it's nothing for Short to do this smaller show with you because you're cool. Right. Because you're like, well, man, don't trip. I'm gonna get you on this other thing.
Absolutely.
We're gonna loop it back around. And that's where it makes sense.
Story of my life. You do this one, I got you on this one.
Yeah.
So, and typically that always works out. Trust me, he'll be on Crush Group next year, and the price went up. So, and it's okay. But yeah, I love that, the fact that we can, and for me, and before we end, for me, you gotta understand, like, I was a fan, like I grew up Too Short, DJ Quick, Ice Cube, Snoop Dogg, like that was, so to be in a presence, not as a groupie, but as a fan, but as somebody who really fulfilled his destiny in the sense that I said I want to do this and I achieved it. So I always tell people like you can do it. So I'm definitely humble, and I'm definitely grateful and blessed that I goes back to what I said. Luck got me through the door, which was my brother, and talent ultimately kept me. So to be in their presence, to have a real normal conversation in a sense, right? And even Greg and the Pharcyde. I mean, I don't know which members I'm gonna get, but we we'll definitely have a conversation, and I can and ultimately those dudes, they're just really like us, right? They just want to be talked to normal and have normal conversations. So, but yeah.
No, dope. So man, this has been a good one, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, likewise.
You want to give out your socials? Any shows you got coming up? Anything you?
I mean, Yeah, not really, because you see, I'm so like I really don't care. Like it is what it is. But you know, I got shows coming up top of the year, and you know, this NBA thing that I'm doing with the NBA, and now I'm getting into the NFL stuff. So, you know, it's but yeah, no, just you know, y'all, you can tag me somewhere. I saw some of the stuff. Well, they can find it there, but nah, just when you see me, say hi.
Yeah, you still a good dude, man. You still a good dude. What's up with you, Jeremy? You about to hop on the plane? You got anything coming up? Anything need to?
Real quick, somebody threw out there and said Terrence Howard for an actor to play you.
All right, I can do that. I don't know. He hustle and flow, man. There's some rappers, some actors don't need to play rappers. He's one of them. But I'm not a rapper, so therefore I can get it.
Yo, you've been funny, man.
And Lucius Lyons is probably the worst character I've ever seen on major television ever.
I'm doing some shows in New York this week, but never mind that. That's not important. What is important is Memphis, Tennessee, January 13th through the 15th. I'm headlining. First time being in Memphis. If you
hold on, you've never been to Memphis?
Never been to Memphis. Yeah.
There's two cities I'll never go to again.
That's how you start this show.
Yeah. One is Memphis, the other one's Baton Rouge. Them two cities, I ain't.
Why?
Bruh.
You let me know after you leave Memphis.
Oh no, it's a setup.
Yeah. All right. So, well, good luck.
That's terrible.
I'm sorry, but yeah, tell him, Greg, you don't want to go to Baton Rouge or Memphis, man.
Hey, man, it's so funny. I'll say this before I wind it down. I was listening to one of my favorite comedians, Corey Holcomb, and he was talking about New Orleans, and he was like, "Yeah, New Orleans." He said New Orleans is cool, but once you get away from hearing the
yeah.
Once it's you don't want to be
you're on the wrong side of them tracks over there.
Yeah, you don't want to be where you can't hear that music, man. You do not.
That levee broke for a reason. But yeah, good luck. But listen, I'm just joking. But I've been to Memphis.
We'll see.
Yeah.
Nah, all good. Well, no, man, this has been another episode of Splendid Radio on Pharcyde TV. Thank you, Adrian. Thank you, Jeremy, for
thank you, man,
making it happen. And shoot, man, we'll catch back up with you guys. Thanks.